Hi and afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Ishita from Prudent Insurance Brokers, and I welcome you all to this very interesting Friday webinar that we've arranged for you. So very often we get these WhatsApp messages saying, just take this one pill and there'll be no need for exercise and you'll suddenly lose all your weight. There are also other Instagram reels which claim this one simple exercise can ensure that you never get Alzheimer's or any other mental health problem. Don't you ever end up questioning, are these really true? There are so many types of medical misinformation out there on the internet that we are always left confused which to follow and which not to follow, which to believe, which not to believe. So for the same reason today we have with us Dr. Alok. He is CEO at Gleneagles Global Health City, Chennai, and he will be helping us understand all about medical misinformation. What are the various types of misinformation that are available on the internet these days, and what we can do as a layperson to better counter these maybe myths or incorrect details. Dr. Alok is a highly experienced healthcare executive. He has held leadership positions at renowned organizations such as Kaveri Hospital, HCL, Max, and he holds a BS degree at HCL, Bupa, and he holds a MBBS along with fellowship in emergency and retrieval medicine, business management, and is very, very very experienced and acclaimed in this field. Will be able to help us understand what faced with medical misinformation. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. The session is over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Ishita. Welcome everyone to this session on medical misinformation. So I hope that we are able to discuss some relevant pieces of information today for all of us. So I hope my screen is visible to everybody. Ishita, can you confirm, please?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, so we'll start the session, and my suggestion is whatever questions the attendees have, they can type in the chat box, and at the end of the presentation, Ishita will moderate the questions and read them out to me to answer one by one. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible. In case there's lack of time, you can email the questions to the Prudent team and they'll get in touch with me. So with that, we will kick off the session today. So what exactly is misinformation? It is information that is false, inaccurate, or misleading according to the best available evidence at that time. So the important point to note is current evidence may not be available for something at this point in time, may be considered to be inaccurate or misleading information, but in the future this information based on evidence available at that time may become relevant or irrelevant. So again, it's a function of time and evolution of medicine. For example, many years ago, we didn't have antibiotics, we didn't have vaccines, so all that developed over a period of time. So if you told somebody in the 1700s that you can actually get a vaccine and not get the disease, they'll say this is some mumbo jumbo magic, but over time it became a scientific reality. So the point to consider here is it is the best information available with evidence to back it at that point in time. So health information can be designed as a health related claim that is based on evidence which is anecdotal. So there is not enough supporting evidence because one or two case studies which are put in as an example, false or misleading owing to lack of existing scientific knowledge. So this is something which can be said that there's a magic cure for dengue, you can have papaya leaf for dengue, it may help, who knows, but there's no direct evidence for it. Right? So there are things like this where there is a claim being made, but there's not enough evidence to support the scientific logic behind it. So over the last 2 decades, as all of you know, social media and internet have been increasingly forums for us to go and seek information. There was a time when people used to look for encyclopedia and the library to seek information. Now they just go online on Google and search. So I belong to the generation which saw the internet coming up, and before that we used to have encyclopedias. Now hardly anyone has encyclopedia at home. You use resources on the web to look at information, to search for information, and to validate information. It's a blessing that you can go online and check health information. So even hospitals and doctors are using these forums to disseminate information, but also brings us to a disadvantage, which is basically a lot of information being put out by people who are not qualified, do not have enough evidence, or they are doing it just to market their own products. So there's outright misleading information also available out there. So as we go through this presentation, we'll see more and more of that. So this is a scientific study conducted in the US regarding the prevalence of health misinformation, and it has been published in National Institute of Health. So it's a published peer-reviewed scientific study. This is the source which I've given at the bottom. So it covered a lot of health topics on social media platforms, and they found misinformation to 6 principal categories being available. 32% of the misinformation was regarding vaccines. We have seen a lot of that flying around in the past couple of years with the COVID pandemic. People talking about vaccine being good, vaccine is bad, vaccine can give you a heart attack, this vaccine is good, that vaccine is bad, Indian vaccine is bad, mRNA vaccine is good. So much information on social media was out there about vaccines. So the most misinformation in recent times was about vaccines. Then drugs or smoking. So drugs classically related to things like marijuana or that you call ganja in India, marijuana or smoking, nicotine related to that, related to non-communicable disease like heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, related to pandemics. Obviously, there are a lot of misinformation about the pandemic. We also saw floating around on social media. Even mainstream newspapers carried a lot of articles which were very poorly, if at all, scientifically researched. Eating disorders, primarily related to weight loss, related to bulimia, this was found over the studies. And then medical treatments, which is very strange that medical treatments are done by professionals and qualified individuals based on established protocols across the world. But social media has a lot of information which are inaccurate, which was found in this study. So it was highest on Twitter, and issues related to products, smoking, and public health issues also was very high. So Twitter was found to be in this particular study having the highest level of health misinformation. To my experience personally, it is WhatsApp in India. We call it the WhatsApp University. People float all kinds of videos, content on WhatsApp about health, saying you do this, you'll not get that disease. If you have this disease, you do this, you'll get cured. There's a magical cure. So these are some of the most common things that have been seen in this study. So this slide is not very clear. I'll just explain. It is not just social media. So social networks are one part where all these legends, which is drugs, eating disorders, non-communicable disease, pandemic, vaccines, was shared. But a lot of media sharing. So media sharing includes forwarding on WhatsApp, forwarding on Facebook, posting on Facebook, liking, resharing on Facebook, putting as your status message, and a lot of micro-blogging sites. So people write blogs without having an idea what they are really talking about. So recently you would have also seen that the Reserve Bank of India has asked financial influencers on social media platforms, typically Instagram, to get a license as a financial advisor, otherwise they can't give advice. If they are giving advice, without that they have to pay a fine, because a lot of people were giving financial advice and keeping quiet when people lost money, but only used to say, okay, people who have followed me and made this much money. So similarly, this health misinformation is something which is being looked at very seriously by governments across the world, including the Indian government. And there will be regulations in the future on what kind of advice can be given by whom. Let's now quickly look at some common examples that I came across while browsing and with help from Dr. Ishita. Need to lose 30 pounds twice, sensor free, get a gym body without going to the gym. I would love to do that. It's like you can go to heaven without dying, right? Can you get a body like that without going to the gym? It's impossible. So if you see actors with six packs or models and action stars, they exercise at least 4 to 5 hours every day to get a body like that and eat very, very carefully. You can't lose weight like that and have this kind of sculpted body without going to the gym. So this is completely a false claim. Trying something which is like a powder added to stuff and then you get a gym body. This is my personal favorite. Have green tea and you don't get cancer. Absolutely miracle cure, right? It will fight cancer. It doesn't. It doesn't. Green tea has antioxidants, and antioxidants help protect against cancer, but there is no guarantee that it's going to fight cancer. So anything with antioxidants is good for the body because they reduce free radical production in the body. Free radicals can cause damage to the body, cause damage to the DNA of our body, and cause possible predisposition to cancers. But green tea cannot cure cancer or prevent cancer completely. So a lot of things are fact and fake. It's very difficult to differentiate sometimes when it comes from sources which seem to be credible. There are a lot of people calling themselves doctor and scientists online, but most of them don't even have any real qualifications. You would have seen a lot of supermarkets carrying immune system. So this particular one does everything for each and every one. It does for the breast, the prostate. So it does female and male both organs, cardiovascular, vision, skin, colon health, bioavailable DIM. See, all these things are false claim. There is no single magic bullet or there's no single magic tablet which keeps the entire body healthy. So that is just not possible. Kid essentials, immunity protection. So when COVID came in, everybody started saying, "Oh, have a stronger immunity, have a stronger immunity." Everyone rebranded the same product they had, whether it was kid supplements or for women or for elderly. They called it immunity booster, immunity protection. The reality is, if our children have a balanced diet, they don't need any supplements. They don't really need any supplements if they have a proper balanced diet. So I'll give you myself as an example. I've never had any of these health drinks as a kid. I'm 6 foot 2 inches tall. My weight is almost 90 kgs. I can punch through a wall. But I never had any of these boosters, any of these things as a kid. All what my late mother gave me was a balanced diet, which had good protein, it had vegetables, it had fruits, the right amount of milk, the right amount of fiber, and we grew just as fine. These days, it's all about marketing, about feeding you that this is the magic bullet for your kids. If they don't give them this, it will give you something fantastic. So all these things are examples of misinformation. My favorite one, Coronil. It was introduced by Patanjali, became a major controversy. That this is, you cannot name it Coronil. The government said you can't name it Coronil because Coronil technically means it fights the coronavirus. There is no drug which fights the coronavirus. You basically only do supportive treatment. So this came under huge controversy. But in a country like India, they sold some 25 million of these tablet boxes. Again, one great favorite, hernia removal tea. So I'll tell you what is hernia. Hernia is when your abdominal organs or organs which are inside the body come out through a small aperture, which is a natural opening or a false opening. For example, people get umbilical hernia. Small babies may get umbilical hernia when the contents of the abdomen come out through the umbilicus, or they get inguinal hernia where in the groin contents of the intestine come out through the groin, or in women with multiple pregnancies they may have a abdominal hernia where because of the weakness caused by pregnancy, the abdominal contents come out through the muscles. So this is hernia. Any tea in the world, any kind of drink in the world cannot remove hernia. So this is a false claim. It is sold across supermarkets, something called hernia removal tea. Again, interesting one. This is a syrup which prevents heart attacks because it claims you have 2 drops of this with water, it will take away all the cholesterol from your body. From a scientific evidence perspective, this is absolutely false. It is just not possible. Let's go on to see a little bit more closer to home. So if you see on the right side, in Times of India, there was an article. People had cow urine. So I have nothing against cows or their urine as long as people don't try to consume their urine. Urine is a waste product. And consuming cow urine has put several people in the hospital because whatever the cow had an illness or whatever it was. This came from the Times of India, if you believe. On the left side, you see popular actor John Abraham. He was on a famous talk show called the Kapil Sharma Show, where he went on to give an example of how fat floats over water. So if you put oil over water, it forms droplets. Similarly, when you have too much oil, the droplets float over your blood, and once the droplet reaches the heart, you get a blockage, and that is a heart attack. This is the most mundane or juvenile explanation of a heart attack, and he became the butt of jokes across on social media. This is the kind of misinformation people clap about because the entire people watching the show clapped about it. So this is one of the ridiculous examples. Another one is somebody who's a spiritual guru who's now in jail. So when I was a medical student, I read a book written by the Guruji, which said that heart disease can be cured in 3 ways. You buy a red cow from the ashram that he runs. You consume the milk of the red cow when the sun is red in the morning during sunrise for 10 days, and heart disease will be gone. There was one more which said you buy a powder from them and consume the powder. That powder will cure heart disease completely. So clots, blockage in your heart disease vessels will be gone. Third was you buy a parrot from their ashram, you keep the parrot in your bedroom, you keep it so close to yourself that when you breathe, your breath hits the parrot breath hits you, and you keep praying to the Guruji. In 7 days, your heart disease will go to the parrot, and the parrot will die. This is a public video where the Guruji was saying to a very large audience, if there is a heart disease and there is heart blockages, do not go for bypass surgery. You should actually have a powder which is given by the ashram, obviously, and have some tulsi leaves. See, tulsi leaves are good, okay? They are natural, they are a great supplement. But tulsi leaves are not going to remove blockages from the heart. So he was counseling people not to do bypass surgery, and there are people like this have very large following. This is again an example of misinformation. So what can be the impacts of misinformation? So I will talk about some of my personal experiences as a doctor. I've been a doctor for more than 20 years now, and I'll talk about what I see very frequently. So depending on the type of misinformation, documented instances have included complications, including hospitalization, even death in some cases. So one primary example from my younger days started in Rajasthan, while I was working in the government sector. In villages, people stopped feeding babies who had diarrhea. So the baby will not get milk anymore, will not get any food, and the baby would actually starve and die because of dehydration and malnutrition rather than the diarrhea. Because they firmly believe because food and milk is not being digested, that is why the baby is having diarrhea. And this is propagated by religious gurus, spiritual gurus, and this misinformation led to a large campaign by the government of India on how to treat diarrhea in children, how ORS should be given. In Hindi, it was called the Jeevan Rakshak Ghol, which basically means the solution which is going to protect life. So ORS campaign was done to prevent people from starving the kids and babies who had diarrhea. So this is an example. I'll give you some more examples. So people who need a liver transplant, for example, the liver is damaged beyond repair because of alcohol liver disease, fatty liver, or autoimmune disease. After undergoing a liver transplant, people have to have medicine for the rest of their lives, which suppresses the immunity, so the body does not work against the transplanted liver. But unfortunately, we have seen cases where somebody after a liver transplant, this was a 45-year-old, he went back to his village, and he was told by the people who are there, who he trusted, that this medicine is going to damage you, you will not be a man anymore, you will have issues with your manliness. So he stopped having the medicine and unfortunately died. The second case, a 35-year-old diabetic, insulin dependent diabetic, went to some alternative medicine person who said, instead of taking this insulin injections, you take this Ayurvedic powder. I've got nothing against Ayurveda, but there are things which are proven in Ayurveda, there are things that are not proven. Have this Ayurvedic powder, stop your insulin. So when type 1 diabetics who are insulin dependent, they don't take their insulin, they develop a life-threatening condition called diabetic ketoacidosis. The survival rate in ketoacidosis is only about 50%. So out of 100 patients, 50 will die even with the best treatment. He was lucky to survive, but after getting some brain damage because of it. A 63-year-old professor from one of the premier engineering institutions came to an emergency one day at 9 o'clock, and he was told that he's having active massive heart attack and requires cardiac surgery, bypass surgery. He cannot do stents because all three major vessels are blocked. His wife was willing, but he was arguing, saying, no, 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 I've spoken to my spiritual guru. He's saying, don't do anything, just breathe, take oxygen, breathe, and you will be okay. We spoke to the nephew, who was quite sensible. He asked us to undergo the surgery, but the gentleman refused. He was a professor in one of the engineering colleges, retired from there. After 2 hours, he became unconscious because his heart started to go into heart failure, cardiogenic failure. When he became unconscious, his wife gave us permission to actually go and operate. We operated. Because of this delay of 2 hours, this gentleman stayed on a heart lung and ventilator machine for 3 days, which was not required at all. He was lucky to survive. Hypervitaminosis D. So there are two types of vitamins. One is the water-soluble vitamins like the B group vitamins and the C group vitamins, which are soluble in water. And the others are fat-soluble vitamins. So vitamin D and vitamin B12 are examples of fat-soluble vitamins that can be stored in the body. During the COVID pandemic, in the guise of increasing immunity, increasing better bone health, people had overdoses of vitamin D. They had vitamin D continuously for 6 months. Multiple people showed up to hospitals in the country with a condition called hypervitaminosis D, which basically means toxicity because of overdose of vitamin D. This happened, and it happened to multiple people. They had to be put on drugs to reduce the vitamin D content. from their body because this toxicity can be extremely dangerous for the liver. People had a lot of calcium supplements. Because of this calcium supplements, many people showed up with more urinary stones because most of the health supplements or so-called immunity boosters they were having had excessive calcium. If you have a good amount of calcium in your diet, in the nutrition, in the food, it actually protects against stone formation in the urinary tract. But supplemental calcium, if given in overdose, is actually causing more urinary stones. That is an established scientific fact. So many cases of urinary stones came in because of excessive calcium supplements taken during the COVID pandemic. Because people believed if I have more of these supplements, I'll have better immunity. Let me say one more thing. A lot of people wanted to take steam. And not knowing how to take steam and how hot steam can be, many people came with steam burns to various hospitals across the country because it was told, somebody said, I don't know who it was, again, classical example of medical misinformation. You take steam and gargle and wash your nose with saline and water, you will not get the coronavirus. Absolutely false, absolutely fake claim, no such evidence, but many people got steam burns of the upper areas, the nose and the mouth. So again, some examples of myths and facts. So this is about vaccine. A lot of people knew that vaccine. So it's too soon to know vaccine is safe and effective. Actually, not because vaccines are tested, but yeah, the COVID vaccine there was not enough time to test the vaccine. That is true. Then things like if I had already had COVID, I don't need the vaccine. No, it may not protect you. Coronavirus are notorious for mutating and changing. Having COVID does not protect lifelong. Many people have got it 2 times. I don't need to wear a mask after getting the vaccine. No, that is also a myth. The fact is, you have to do it. In India, there was a lot of nonsense about this being a political party vaccine rather than vaccine for the people, and it will cause infertility. It is designed to cause infertility in one particular community because the ruling government wants that. All sorts of misinformation flying around all the time. The vaccine gives you COVID-19. Actually, the vaccine cannot give you COVID-19 because the mRNA vaccine does not have the virus. The Covishield is live inactivated virus. So the virus is not strong enough to give you a disease because the attenuation has been done or the virulence or the capability of the virus to cause disease is gone. So these are various examples of myths and facts. And then another interesting one published by the government of India. Indians most likely to believe COVID-19 myths. So this is again a survey done in India and South Africa. So COVID-19 can spread through parcels from affected countries. 54% Indians who responded to this survey actually believed it can compared to 50% South Africans. So the one heartening fact is we have equivalent number of simpletons in other countries also. So even South Africa is also not very bright. That may be a consolation to many people. Exposure to the sun and high temperature prevents COVID-19. 35% people believe that in India, 29% in Russia. Again, Russians are also not far behind. But apparently, South Africans don't like garlic that much as we do. Eating garlic prevents COVID-19. India, 34% people thought so. Actually, there's a very powerful guru who's followed by millions and millions of people. Runs a very large foundation. He has multiple sessions on YouTube where he talks about garlic being a medicine, not to be had as part of food. The scientific side says garlic is actually really healthy, but it may not directly prevent COVID or prevent anything. It is a good health food, no doubt about it. So there is another person who talks about brinjals being poisonous. There is no data whatsoever to support that brinjals are poisonous. Pets can transmit COVID-19. The Chinese thought more than us. So somewhere, we are better off than the Chinese. China 40%, India 34%. And this was not a small sample size. 15,872 adults surveyed in 16 countries. So this is some data to show you how prevalent myths are. So again, if 50,000 people say something that is foolish, it is still a foolish thing. It does not become reality. Let's move on further. So, sources of authentic health information. So, where do we really look for health information? Is a question that people have because these days everybody or anybody is making Instagram reels, writing blogs, putting reels on Facebook, putting stuff on Twitter. People are putting themselves as holistic healers, life coaches. So I myself don't know of a university which teaches you life coaching. The only university which teaches you how to live life is life itself. And I don't think anybody can say they're a life coach. All of us are life coaches of our own life, right? So people say they're life coach, do this, you will be okay, do that, you will be okay. Place water and tumbler in this corner of your house, that will become okay. Some of these beliefs may be associated with feng shui. Some of the beliefs may have some scientific evidence, but a lot of these people are not qualified to give this kind of advice. Specifically, when it comes to medicine, I have tried to list a couple of portals where you can actually look for the right information. So, country and state government health websites, because government websites always have scientifically researched information. Rarely they have that is not researched, so they are authentic. They have scientists to actually see all this information and validate it. So mohfw.gov.in is the Government of India's website. It's Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. They have some excellent content, some posters that you can use in your companies. If you're part of HR, you can download some posters on hand washing, hygiene, sneezing, preventing colds and coughs, on tuberculosis from these particular sources. They are open source. You can actually download and use. The government has put all this out there for use by common people. TBC India is a tuberculosis resources website by the Government of India again. Talks about how tuberculosis is, what is the diagnosis, what are the symptoms, what to do in case somebody has tuberculosis at home or somebody in the office has tuberculosis, what are the protocols, what is the education material you can actually circulate. Then international reputed health organizations. We all know WHO, even though they dropped the ball a little bit on COVID-19, but still they're a credible source of information in terms of credible health sources and credible information. Mayo Clinic is one of the most reputed healthcare chains in the world. They have an excellent website and some excellent resources. My suggestion would be they have three categories of data: information for patients, information for general people, information for healthcare providers. So healthcare providers basically means doctors and nurses. It will be more technical in nature. My suggestion would be to go at look at the general public information for general public section. If you are suffering from that particular disease, you can look at information for patients. CDC.gov is Centers for Disease Control, US government website. This is one of the best for any kind of infectious disease across the world. CDC again has excellent information, peer-reviewed information, very well researched information, and it's all open source. You can download it and put it as your source of information. Very, very accurate. AHA is American Heart Association. That's again to do with heart disease, to do with hypertension, to do with cardiovascular ailments. You get all this information on AHA along with the latest treatment protocols. Cancer.gov is again an initiative from the American health system on about cancer. So they carry the latest protocols and guidelines on treatments of various types of cancer, diagnosis of cancer. And also remember, they also talk about long-term survival rates and for a patient, what kind of information is required. Diabetes.org is the website for the American Diabetes Association. We have an Indian Diabetes Association also. Their content is also very similar to the American Diabetes Association. The content is actually quite genuine. Cleveland Clinic, another very high-end healthcare organization in the US, have an excellent website. There are others as well. There's Johns Hopkins. They have excellent healthcare material. Even large corporate hospitals, large hospitals in India, websites also carry some very genuine and authentic content. So these are places you can actually go to for content. Then I have a list of do's and don'ts, and I promised Ishita I'll wind up my presentation in 40 minutes. I think I'm ahead of time, so I will wind up in about 35 minutes and leave open for questions. So some advice from me on do's and don'ts while seeking health information. We'll go with the don'ts first. Don't make your own diagnosis. Whatever you read, whatever you do is only for information. Do not make a diagnosis by reading online, because then you can actually go to the dark web and read yourself. So, being a Google doctor is not a great idea. And it's actually now a pathology being a Google doctor where people actually go onto Google and diagnose themselves. So when I used to start Googling about psychiatric ailments, whether it is obsessive compulsive disorder or ADHD, all the symptoms used to reflect my own personality. So I stopped Googling because I thought, oh my God, I have every psychiatric disorder in the world. So again, on a lighter note, don't make your own diagnosis. Go to a relevant specialist who's going to make your diagnosis. Don't change treatment without consulting a qualified specialist. We'll talk about what a qualified specialist is. Don't delay surgical intervention based on the internet or on spiritual gurus, because these people are not experts at what they are saying. So please do not delay surgical intervention, especially in cases where early intervention is possible to completely change outcomes. Don't trust influencers with dubious qualifications. So you see a lot of people calling themselves doctor online. If you go research their qualification, you'll realize they're not even real doctors. So People who have done a PhD can also use the title of doctor, but that is in that particular domain where they have done a PhD. It's not clinical medicine. Clinical medicine needs you to register your qualifications. So the base qualification is MBBS, then it is MD or MS for a specialist, then for a super specialist it is DM or MCH. This list of registered qualifications is available with NMC, which used to be the previous Medical Council of India. All qualifications they recognize in India to practice medicine are listed on their website. Also, you can go to any state medical council's website and verify which doctor is genuine and who's not. For example, if you go to the medical councils in the state where I am registered in, you type my name, you will get my registration, my address, my qualifications. All those will be available with the medical council. This is how you can verify. So somebody who's an MBBS doctor is telling you we do a kidney transplant. Please don't trust, because they may have a qualification but not enough to deal with the ailment that you are suffering from. Here the internet is a good source. Who does a kidney transplant in India? It will be a urologist and a nephrologist together. Urologist is an MCS doctor, a nephrologist is a DM doctor, or they may have DMD equivalent qualifications, and they will have a license which allows them to do it. So without that, don't trust even people who claim to be doctors. So there are gurus with no medical qualifications. They'll give you some kind of a powder and say drink this powder, you'll not get heart disease, HIV/AIDS will go away, or there's a fish cure in Hyderabad where you go once a year in the monsoon. They take a packet of food, stuff it down the fish throat, then they stuff down the fish into the patient's throat, and the patient is supposed to be free from asthma for 1 year. They researched and actually they put those people behind bars a couple of years ago because they're actually giving very high dose steroids. So if you give steroids to a patient with asthma, they will not have asthmatic bout for a long time because of the effect of the steroid, but they have extremely bad side effects. And gurus are good for spiritual guidance, but not for medical, information or for medical guidance. Your guru cannot tell you it is going to be a stent versus a cardiac surgery. It has to be a cardiologist or a cardiac surgeon. Again, as per laws in India, anybody who gives you a guarantee of outcome, for example, somebody says, oh, you have diabetes, I'll completely treat you. It is illegal because qualified doctors are not allowed to do advertisements. As per the Advertising Standard Council of India, they're not allowed to guarantee outcomes. So it is illegal for lawyers and doctors to guarantee outcomes because they don't control the outcome. So if they guarantee outcomes, it is considered to be negligence as per Indian laws. So anybody guaranteeing an outcome on social media is actually misleading you. Do's are smaller. Browse only credible websites. It is okay to Google your symptoms and find out what kind of doctors you need to go to. Verify the doctor you are consulting is qualified to treat the disease. This is something which is very important, especially if you are going to a standalone doctor sitting in his clinic. Please verify his qualifications by going online. In larger hospitals, they have credentialing and privileging processes. So people who are not registered can't even work in those hospitals because they have to submit their registration certificates. So this is something you should actually do every time you are going to use a particular specialty. Always follow the advice of your doctor. If you want a second medical opinion, please get it from a qualified specialist, not from a guru or not from the neighborhood hawker or grocer. Please get it from a qualified specialist. So with this, in less than 40 minutes, I come to the end of the presentation. Thank you, everyone. I hope you learned something from us today. Thank you, Rajendra. Thank you, everyone.